Good day, everyone! Welcome to Sir Fox Learning Channel. For today's video, I would like to present to you a virtual demonstration by Ma'am Arlene. Ito po ngayon yung new normal teacher demonstration. So, alam nyo po, every quarter, a teacher must have a teacher demonstration. And since we are at this new normal education, most of the teachers demonstrate virtually. So tara, panoorin nyo po ang video ito, demonstration for grade 8 math by teacher Arlene. Maraming pong salamat. Happy learning, everyone.
Okay, so we proceed now with the demonstration of grade 8 mathematics teachers. So our first demo teacher is one of the subject matter expert in mathematics. She is also one of the artists in the mathematics department. The very and one and only gorgeous math teacher in grade 8. May we call on Ma'am Arlene Abawag.
Okay. So, thank you, Sir Don. Artist talaga, no? Yung picture ko kanina, artist. So, let me start.
Nag-stop sharing na ako, ma'am.
Yep. Nag-stop sharing ka na, sir. Ako naman. Okay. So, kita na po ang aking presentation.
Yes po.
Okay. Good afternoon, class. So, welcome to another lesson in Mathematics 8. The converse of an if-then statement. Okay, so you have learned from the previous lesson the conditional statement. So, let's have a little recall on it. Okay, so the conditional statement. What we're going to do in the recall is we're going to determine the hypothesis and the conclusion of the following conditional or if-then statement. Number 1, if you love your parents, then you obey them. So what do you think is the hypothesis in this statement? Okay, very good. The hypothesis is you love your parents. Okay, remember, you have learned before that the phrase after the word if is what we call the hypothesis. And of course, the conclusion is? Yes, exactly. The conclusion is you obey them. So that is the phrase after the word then. So, okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, if you wear a face mask and a face shield, then you prevent COVID-19. What do you think is the hypothesis of this statement? Yes, very good. The hypothesis is you wear a face mask and face shield. And of course, the conclusion is? Yes, definitely. The conclusion is you prevent COVID-19. So let's have the last one. Number 3, if you avoid COVID-19, then you will stay home. So let's see. What is the hypothesis of that statement? You're right. The hypothesis is you avoid COVID-19. And of course, the conclusion is the phrase after the word then. So that is very good. The conclusion is you will stay home. Okay. So you have learned also from the previous lesson that a conditional statement is true if both hypothesis and conclusion are true. Okay. So let's think about this. What about if we're going to interchange? So or if we will interchange the hypothesis and the conclusion, will the resulting statement still be true? Okay, now in today's lesson, you will be able to make a converse statement out of the given conditional statement. Okay, and our objective or the most essential learning competency for today is determines the converse of an if-then statement. Okay, let's start. Okay, how do we determine the converse of the conditional statement? So to determine the converse of the conditional or what we call the if-then statement, we interchange the hypothesis and the conclusion. Okay, so the converse of if it rains, then they cancel school is, if they cancel school, then it rains. So let us examine the converse in this statement. The converse again is, if they cancel school, then it rains. So look at this statement. If they cancel school, then it rains. So come to think of it. Analyze the statement. Is the statement true? If they cancel school, then it rains. Kapag kinancel ba ang klase, uulan? So, do you think this is true? Yes, it is false. Okay. So class, sometimes the converse of a conditional statement is not true. Like in this statement, no? If they cancel school, then it rains. So there might be other reason to cancel school, not just rain. Tama? Okay. So, remember that in the if-then statement, P is the hypothesis and Q is the conclusion. Now, in the converse of an if-then statement, we interchange P and Q. So, remember before, the hypothesis is denoted by P and the conclusion is denoted by Q. So, if we have the if-then statement, we have if P, then Q. To get the converse, you will interchange these two. So, the converse is if Q, then P. Okay. So, let's take these examples. Number one, the if-then statement is, if you are a responsible student, then you study your lesson. So, how do we determine again the converse of a conditional statement? We will just interchange the hypothesis. Look at this. Okay, I'm pointing in the cursor. We're going to interchange this hypothesis, you are a responsible student, and the conclusion, which is you study your lesson. So now, what do you think is the converse of this statement? If you interchange the hypothesis and conclusion, it will result to very good. The converse is, if you study your lesson, then you are a responsible student. So again, examine the converse. If you study your lessons, then you are a responsible student. Is that statement true? Very good. Yes, of course. It is a true statement. So if you study your lesson, then definitely you are a responsible student. So now, do you study your lesson? Then you are a responsible. Very good if you study your lesson. So let's go to the next example. So the next one is, the if-then statement is, if you are a guitar player, then you are a musician. So again, how do we determine the converse? Very good. We just interchange the hypothesis, the phrase after the word if, that's the hypothesis, and of course, the phrase after the word then, which is the conclusion. Now, what is the converse of this statement? Very good. The converse is, if you are a musician, then you are a guitar player. But then again, let us examine the converse. So, look at the converse. Is the converse true? If you are a musician, then you are a guitar player? Sing, sing, sing. Okay. So the converse is a false statement this time. So remember what I said earlier. Not all converse statement is true. Sometimes the converse of a conditional statement is false. Now, why do you think the converse this time is false? Okay. So it doesn't mean that if you are a musician, you are a guitarist only. But there are many musicians who can play other musical instruments. So do you know Ryan Cayabyab? Ryan Cayabyab is known as one of what? Known musician in our country. And he is known to be what? Very good in playing piano. So he's a known pianist in our country. Another is Jay Kayuka. So Jay Kayuka is one of the best violinists in our country. So meaning not all musicians are a guitar player. So let's go to the next one. Number 3, the if-then statement is if you compete in the Olympics, then you are an athlete. So again, we're going to determine the converse of this statement. And how do we get the converse again? Yes, very good. We will interchange, of course, the hypothesis and the conclusion. So don't forget that. So determining the converse of an if-then statement is very easy. Or you will just interchange. That's why it's very important that you know how to determine the hypothesis or the phrase after the word if, and the conclusion, of course, because you will just interchange that. And now, what is the converse of this statement? Yes, you're right. The converse is, if you are an athlete, then you compete in the Olympics. So let us again see if the converse is a true statement or a false statement. If you are an athlete, then you compete in the Olympics. Well, let me ask you this. Do you know someone who is an athlete? Are you an athlete? No, if you are an athlete, do you compete in the Olympics? No. So meaning this statement is false statement. So another false statement. Why? Not all athletes compete in the Olympics, right? See? Maybe you are an athlete, but there's no chance for you to compete in the Olympics. Maybe someday, or your friend is also an athlete. I know many athletes who do not compete in the Olympics. So in our school, there are several teachers who are very athletics. They are athletes, but they don't compete in the Olympics. Okay? So let's go to the fourth one. Okay, number 4. The if-then statement is, if two angles are congruent, then they have the same measure. Okay, so again, we will interchange the hypothesis and the conclusion for us to get the converse statement. So what is the converse of this statement? Yes, the converse is, if two angles have the same measure, then they are congruent. Okay, so again, look, examine. Do you think the converse this time is true or false? If two angles have the same measure, this one have the same measure with this, then they are congruent. What do you think? Yes, very good. The converse is a true statement. Of course, we all know that congruent angles have the same measure. But you have learned that when you were in grade 7. Okay? So let's go to the last example. Number 5. Okay. The if-then statement is, if angle A is a right angle, then it measures 90 degrees. Okay. If angle A is a right angle, then it measures 90 degrees. So what do you think is the converse of this? If you will interchange the hypothesis and the conclusion, the converse will be, yes, You're right again. The converse is, if angle A measures 90 degrees, then it is a right angle. So, is this converse statement a true statement or not? Very good. It is a true statement. Of course, we all know that if an angle is right, then it measures 90 degrees. Do you know a right angle whose measure is not 90? So definitely wala, di ba? All right angles measures 90 degrees. So do you have any questions? So if that's the case, let's have your learning task for today. So for your first learning task, write the converse of the following if-then statement and tell whether it is true or false statement. Number 1, if Joy is a student at DWNHS, then she takes mathematics class. Write the converse of that. And of course, don't forget to tell whether if it is true or a false statement. Number 2, if you love your parents, then you obey them. So what will be the converse of that? Number 3, if you avoid COVID-19, then you will stay home. Number 4, if angles A and B are vertical angles, then they are congruent. And number 5, if a point is a midpoint, then it divides a segment into two congruent segments. Okay, for your learning task 2, choose any of the 5 statements above. Make it a slogan and write the statement on a short bond paper and put designs on it. Okay, now take time in doing your learning task. Okay, but make sure you will submit it on our next retrieval. Okay, so for now, let's have the assimilation. So let's fill in the blanks. Choose among the given words below: hypothesis, change, conclusion, true, interchange, false. Okay, a converse statement is formed when we blank the blank and blank. Not all converse statement is blank. Okay, what word do you think is the perfect word or the right word for the first blank? A converse statement is formed when we blank. So I'm saying this during the discussion many times. So what do we do to get the converse of the statement? Okay, a converse statement is formed when we, yes, very good, when we interchange. So what do we interchange? The hypothesis and the conclusion. Okay, very good. So let's have the next. So the last blank. Not all converse statement is what? Yes, very good. True. Remember, we have examples earlier that that is not true or a false statement. Okay? So, for your reflection on today's lesson, write in your notebook, journal, or portfolio your personal insights about the lesson using the prompts below. I understand that. Just complete it. And I realize that. Okay. So, if you, in case class, no, in case you find any difficulty while working on your learning task, don't hesitate to approach me or contact me via text messages or direct message me in my messenger account. Or if you have strong internet connection at home and you want to learn more, you may watch my video tutorials in my husband's YTC or YouTube channel. This is my husband's YouTube channel where I put my video tutorials in Mathematics 8 class. The link is this, okay? So I hope you learned something today, class. Thank you and happy learning.
ginagawa this time of pandemic. Pero still, we will do our best just to reach out at ma-meet po namin yung goal ng Department of Education. Okay, at kung bago ka sa channel na ito, sana huwag mong kalimutang mag-subscribe. Please subscribe my channel para lagi kang updated sa mga susunod ko pong video lessons. Maraming salamat. Happy learning everyone.